You are listening to the EPT Works Listen, Love, Give podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm here to help you create phenomenal health, happiness, and new life with energy, intuition, and forgiveness. In a world where emotional health is often treated with mind-altering drugs or years of talk therapy, it's time for more compassionate, imaginative initiatives in emotional health care. EPT is short for Emotional Polarity Technique, an innovative, holistic emotional therapy that will change your life and health for good. You can learn more about Emotional Polarity Technique through my new book, The Forgiveness Doctor, available on Amazon.com. You can subscribe to this podcast, get free EPT training at EPTworks.com, and like us on Facebook. This is an interview with Sherry Hamilton, sharing her best tips for making incredible forgiveness statements. Sherry Hamilton has been an EPT practitioner for over 20 years. She is currently lead core training instructor and a master EPT practitioner. She is in private practice in Huntsville, Alabama. Her website is www.eptworkshuntsville.com. She also hosts a podcast called 100 Days of EPT. You can find that at www.ept100days.podbean.com. Welcome, Sherry. I'd like to get started by asking, did EPT come easy for you?
No. In the very beginning, learning for me was not easy. I went through several setbacks with learning the tools, muscle testing, magnets, and two-pointing, and then trying to remember the process of it all. It was a lot, how it flowed together. And while I was getting all that figured out, I realized everybody is not the same body and mind. So every person you're working on is different, and that caused a lot more trouble getting through the learning phase.
So what was the most challenging part of this process for you?
Okay, it was the forgiveness statements.
And that's why I have you here. So even though this forgiveness aspect and making these statements was challenging, what made you keep trying or keep going?
The first thing that kept me going as an aspiring EPT therapist was that even though I was a beginner, I was getting enormous positive feedback from my clients. I was helping people feel better during their first EPT session, and I was so surprised. And then the second thing that kept me going was because I couldn't stop my curiosity and my interest into the whys and the hows of EPT process and how far-reaching it could have gone or how it was going to go to alleviate long-held emotional hurts for myself and for my clients.
What would you tell someone who is struggling with this process of making these statements?
Use the process itself for identifying and resolving your own struggles. If you are in a struggle, then you have to recognize that and deal with that. Identify what you believe that isn't true, just like you say. Set that up as your focus and go through the EPT process to smooth out your internal struggle that is showing up in your outer world experience. Maybe you believe that you have to go through a struggle when you learn something new, or you have to face a struggle to create something of value in your life. Get into your inner world and figure out what you are telling yourself, and then use EPT therapy to believe your outcome is achievable and you are working toward that outcome step by step. You will get good at practicing the process on yourself and with other people who are learning EPT in your class.
What would you tell someone who feels fearful, like they're just afraid of practicing step 4, forgiveness?
You are likely sensing the energy of resistance when you feel fearful, both the resistance in yourself and in your client. This is the unseen and uncomfortable feeling EPT is alleviating. So you are exactly where you should be. If fear is the first thing you are feeling when you get to this step, then begin your forgiveness statements with that in mind, with a statement such as, I forgive myself for believing I can't think or create when I'm feeling fear. Now just keep going. Keep your forgiveness statement simple and to the point, using the 3 aspects. I forgive myself, I forgive others, and I give others permission to forgive me.
Tell me how your ability with forgiveness statements has evolved.
I wanted my ability to say forgiveness statements to be easy, and it didn't seem easy. So I did the best I could and kept it simple and direct, using the 3 aspects of forgiveness and listening very closely to what my client was telling me. I would use their words because that has meaning for them. I did loads of personal EPT on my own abilities with this. I filled notebooks through the years with sessions of EPT and the forgiveness statements in longhand. I continually pray for being useful and a blessing to others through this therapeutic process and relationship we are engaged in. Even though I would listen to hours of how you, Dr. Annette, make your forgiveness statements, I knew I couldn't be you or even just say what you say every time. There is a creativity that takes place within me and in each therapist. It's different for each person, and I had to let go of what I thought that personal creativity should be or look like, and I did that through doing EPT on myself or in therapy with other therapists.
So, what helped you the most?
It was really practicing on people. That helped me the most. And next to that was writing out those sessions in longhand that I mentioned. It was my own homework. I would record you at LifeWorks, and then I'd replay the sessions over and over. I built my own homework session, and I did it regularly for years. And I don't do longhand anymore. I type them now, but I still study regularly. I also like to remind myself that I was not always good as I am now with forgiveness statements, and I still grow in how they're going to come out. And you know what happened? Incredible healing still happened, even when I didn't feel that great at what I was doing, and it seemed like I was at the simplest end of forgiveness. So I really believe that's because God is kind and merciful, and He helps us when we're in need. And it's not about me, it's about Him, and that story unfolding in each one of us. Forgiveness is promised to be seen by every person, and I've always believed that the vision of forgiveness is way bigger than me. And even if just one event of forgiveness healing in a person's life happens, that can change their whole outlook on how God loves them.
I totally agree. In fact, I believe that whenever you step into that energy of divine love and forgiveness, you are aligning with God's work. And that power of forgiveness and love starts to join with you. In other words, it starts to chase you down. You don't have to feel like you've got to find it, because it will find you. I think it's true to say that the perfect forgiveness statement or acceptance statement or release statement is not the reason people heal. Our jumping into the flow of forgiveness with the best statements we can offer is sort of us volunteering to join what God is already up to in this person's life. The flow of statements we offer alongside our client makes space for increased awareness of God's present healing love. And so I totally concur that the best component in making forgiveness statements is God. So now we've talked about this flow coming along. How, Sherry, do you get into the flow of forgiveness?
I usually begin with the first aspect of forgiveness and use the statement prompt, I forgive myself for believing. And one of your best tips is always forgive yourself for believing what isn't true. So then I look at what negative emotions they have been storing that has blocked their ability to experience a different experience. And I plug those ideas into the prompt to make a complete statement that has meaning specific to the client's focus. For example, I forgive myself for believing I have to feel anger in this situation. Then I just keep going with ideas that allow for their mind to consider agreeing to a new way of thinking. Once I can get the mind's agreement to consider a new way of thinking, then I am able to give them ideas of an experience they have resisted or had difficulty creating to this point in their life.
Do you have some sort of template that helps you to know what to say? Like, what do you follow?
I follow exactly what you taught me to follow.
Yay!
Yes, I use the same templates that we teach in class with the statement prompts that always include the 3 aspects of forgiveness. There's fear release statements, a thought flow through the idea of statements of congruency and stages of healing. Once the client is not showing resistance to the mind change, then I use the statement prompt for writing a new experience. And that is, without this pattern, I'm free to fill in the blank, the new story.
Describe that process for you.
Okay, the process of using templates goes back to practicing. It also has to do with learning about the variety of psychological issues and the differences among clients.
Have you ever felt stuck with not knowing what else you could say?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And people listening are probably kind of shocked to hear both of us say that. Absolutely. We've all been stuck.
Yeah. So you want to know what I do when that happens?
I do. I do.
I give the client forgiveness statements that apply to my stuck feeling because I know that those stuck feeling statements will apply to them as well. And I don't have to let them in on my secret. Again, it's likely that I'm feeling what they are feeling. I forgive myself for believing I will always be stuck. And I usually say a silent prayer because God has promised to answer when you ask.
Well, and when I get stuck, the silent prayer that I use the most often is, God, I can't do this. Please do it for me. And I may say that 10 times in my head while I'm waiting. And you know what? It's the most effective prayer and it's the most amazing prayer because it takes the burden off of me to try to figure it out. And that love and forgiveness starts seeking me instead of me seeking after it. All right, at LifeWorks, I've heard you described what that stuck energy feels like and what it means. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, this is the feeling of resistance, like when 2 magnets are pushing against each other. There is a field there that's resisting. And when you feel that is tangible when you're working in the emotional field. So when the emotional energy feels this way, it can cause people to fall asleep, or it can cause the session to slow down, and so things get really slow. That's one way you can feel in the resistance. The other way is it can feel heavy or angry. People can start having more conflicts that are standing in as representatives in the constellations, and not want to move. You know, you'll get to a point where it gets really resistant feeling, and that can show up in some different ways. So you might feel like giving up. I've done that before. Let's just take a break and do this later. And you don't want to go forward. And it may seem so difficult to get through. It's just like almost like molasses or straining. But this is exactly where you want to be again. This is where you're supposed to be, even though you're like frustrated a feeling or you're feeling that resistance. So what happens, and you told me this too, and it's true, you're just about ready to meet with a breakthrough. So hang in there.
It's so true.
Pay attention.
Yes. Just like feel in your heart some kind of rejoicing because when you hit this point, even though you want to quit and you want to walk out of the room and say, there is no solution to this. There is no forgiveness. It's not going to change. The truth is it's about to change. This is the sign it's about to change. And all you have to do is just be faithful, just hang in there. And the energy on its own is already moving in that direction. And that's why you feel that. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. We've talked about resistance. We've talked about some of, how you have learned to make better EPT or forgiveness statements. So let's boil it down. What are your best tips for getting into the flow of forgiveness and making great forgiveness statements?
Okay, number 1, stay true to your original focus issue. Just pay attention to the one thing you're working on in that session. Number 2, use the prompts. I forgive myself for believing, and fill in the blank. What is your client believing that isn't true? Think about it from what the original focus is. Number 3, use the specific emotions from your find it statements, as well as when possible, use your client's specific words in regards to their experience. Say what they say, and then they'll know you're listening to them and it will make sense for them. And then number 4, look for where the energy of love is disconnected, where it's not flowing, and use forgiveness to reconnect the energy of love.
That's fantastic. So finally, I want to ask you about your podcast. It's called EPT100days.podbeam.com. Explain first what it is.
Okay, my podcast is a catalog of life-affirming statements, including lots of forgiveness, and they're written in a template from your work, from the EPT core training, so that the statements are there and they're set to the model of a shortened EPT session. And each episode is like 10 to 12 minutes.
I love that. I love that in 10 to 12 minutes, you could take a little break and listen to statements every day. How do you hope others can use this podcast to help their own life?
This actually started for a client who had, for children, and my very first podcast is a flow of statements for her children just to listen to relax them. And she's used it a lot and thanked me so much that I decided to make it a whole thing so that, the way that it helps is that people need good things told to them. And there's a lot of people who don't have that, and that's what this is. Nourishment and positive reinforcement available every day in small bites, and it helps personal, mental, and spiritual growth. And people are loving it. Yeah, and it helps calm your mind and your body. And I suggest that people listen to it either, while they're going to sleep, because their mind will reset. It'll calm you down and get things going.
Right. I mean, you could listen to a podcast like this while you're making dinner. In the background, it's going to impact your statements, and it's going to also impact just the way your body feels. All right. How can an EPT practitioner use your podcast to improve their ability to make great forgiveness statements?
Well, because like we said, the episodes are short, you can easily fit them into your day, and you can listen to them regularly to embed the EPT model into your learning process. It goes through the similar model. You'll get it. You'll start understanding how they apply to a specific topic.
Thank you, Sherry, for being a generous and loving EPT practitioner and for doing this interview with me today. I'd love to close with your blessing to those listening.
May you be blessed today with a thankful heart to experience your life and your connection to others with safety and belonging. May you know that you matter. May you show up in peace, trust, and friendships that last a lifetime. May you see, know, and act on good with all your heart, all your mind, and all your strength.
Thanks for listening. You can learn more about emotional polarity technique through my book, The Forgiveness Doctor, available at Amazon.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like us on Facebook, and go get your free EPT training at EPTworks.com. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, The Forgiveness Doctor, sharing with you a more imaginative initiative in emotional health care. Until next time, listen, love, give. EPT works.